Hey, 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 welcome back to Drive Time. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and we do it live, bringing you all the hot takes, headlines, and unfiltered opinions that matter most. Whether you're stuck in traffic, cruising to work, or just chilling at home, we want to hear from you. Today's topics are all about the big stories making waves, but we're not just here to talk at you. We want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your take on everything from the latest political debates to the everyday challenges we face. Remember, whether you're on the left, the right, or somewhere in between, we welcome all points of view. So grab that hands-free device, dial us up, and let's dive into the conversation. What's on your mind? It's Drive Time. We got to get that call in now up there, Josh.
I ran out of time yesterday. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh! Excuses.
Only.
You know
so
who else
many
ran
hours
out of
in
time
day.
yesterday? The Cleveland Cavaliers. That's it.
Oh, did they?
Yes, they did. They're done. They got.
Oh, that was the Knicks.
2 nights ago, they ran out of time. They got, It's
Not
going to
a
be
huge sports
crazy
fan.
in New York. The New York Knicks haven't won the title since the year I was born, 1973.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. And Knicks fans are kind of unique. They go to stadiums. They take over stadiums. I mean, they're like any other state. You get your jerk-off fans and you got your cool fans. What's up, everybody? The Anthony Imperio in the chat. We have a new number. Put it up. All right. This is the new number. The reason why we had this number now, I'll write it down. 2721. I wish it was 2127, but it's 2721. Right? So I'm gonna screw that up many times because I think we've already had a number that was 2127. Now it's 2721. But it's 561-247-2721. That's 561-247-2721. What's up, a dingo ain't me, baby? Old school in the house. Look at Fred Edward getting up nice and early. Man, love you guys. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Josh, I don't know if you ever had one of those days where you're just dragging ass. I knew I'd have one of them.
Frequently.
Josh,
I had a little trouble waking up today, but so I did.
Made a beautiful dinner last night. Didn't overeat either. Like a lot of those days that I have a hard time getting up is because I have too many carbs the night before, and I really don't have. I'm trying not to have any carbs unless I have to. I mean, definitely not gluten. But if I go cray-cray and I have like a pizza, have a Coca-Cola, if Miriam is watching this, she's going to fucking kill me. Marty, Mimi, I love you. If she's watching this, she'll get mad. If Chris Romero is watching this, I'll be like, you don't got eczema because of gluten. It's your emotions. Chinese medicine is so interesting, but if I have a lot of like gluten, right, the night before, that's usually the day I'm dragging ass. Yesterday, I ate on schedule. I tried to intermittent fast, eating my 6 hours. You know what I'm saying? I made some nice filet mignon last night. I used the trick my friend Miguel Santiago taught me where you salted up the meats beforehand. And you get that nice buttery crisp in the cast iron skillet. I used his fresh rosemary from his garden. Morning, Gabrielle. Little garlic, butter. I had some bacon fat that I had left over too, so I mixed the bacon fat and the butter together and seared the filet mignons, and then just kind of scooped that butter on top and then put that beautiful cast iron pan in the oven. Probably cooked it about a good 30 seconds to a minute too long, but it was still survivable. And I made a red chimichurri yesterday, Josh. Have you ever had a red chimichurri?
I have not.
I'm going to start bringing these to the table. I'm going to start bringing these pictures to the table because I always make them. I'm going to start bringing them to the show. Y'all can see
making me hungry.
A red chimichurri. I also made a green chimichurri because I had cilantro, I had Italian parsley, I had a little dill, I had some fresh basil, and I put that with garlic, a little rice wine vinegar, a little balsamic vinegar, a little white vinegar. I did the vinegar trio, and I kind of hit that in the bullet, so it's really like kind of like smoothie. It's not like a Argentinian or a Brazilian. It's more like a Brazilian kind of a chimichurri, where it's kind of leafy and chunky. But the red chimichurri is the good one. You get sweet paprika, you get crushed red pepper, and you get oregano. And you put that in a pan with some type of oil. I used olive oil, and you slowly cook that. Then you take it off the heat, and you grate that piece of garlic in there. You don't want the garlic to fry up. You just want to kind of get it throughout there. But you also hit it with balsamic vinegar. And a red chimichurri is a little spicy, but you also get that vinegary kick too as well. I had that. I had some baked beans left over, made with rice and baked beans. And I made a cucumber salad with some red onion. Once again, another friend of mine, Miguel Santiago, used his trick. I used a teaspoon of sugar in the mixture with rice wine vinegar, olive oil, some red onion, purple onion, whatever you want to call it, and cucumber slices. And that was the clean dinner last night. Glass and a half of, got to throw that half a glass in there, of a California Cabernet Sauvignon. Which, by the way, Josh, I'm a coffee snob, a wine snob, and a snob, and a weed snob. What kind of snobs are you out there, ladies and gentlemen?
Man, I'm too poor to be a snob.
Somebody says, if I ate like that, I'd be dragging for weeks. So difficult to digest. You know, it's weird because when I was a vegan, and I was a vegan for a year and a half, I just had all types of stomach problems and skin problems. And it was just, but I didn't eat vegan right. If you're going to be a vegan, you just got to be careful of the processed foods, right? Because they have all this shit that you can have that's vegan, but it's got just a ton of processed foods in it. It's not good for you. So I try to eat just meat, protein, a protein, a starch, and a vegetable. That's it. And the starch, I try to go good with it. I have to include it because Mom, I got to feed Mom every day out there. Yeah, I'm a news snob. Look at you.
That's a great comment.
You're a cute snob is what you are, sweetheart. Gabrielle Freedom, thank you so much.
Got a call?
Mm.
Are you ready?
So we're going to have a great guest on today. Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski will be here shortly. There's a new number, guys, 561-247-2721. Oh, I got to send that new number to the other guy.
Yeah, I'm going to let this caller in.
Who?
There's a caller.
Already?
Bring
him in.
Hey, you're on the air.
Yes, sir.
Who do we got calling?
Miguel Santiago here to talk about dry brining steaks.
Yeah,
morning,
with that piece
Papa.
of rosemary in there,
Good morning,
baby.
Jay. So the purpose of salting them, what you do, you salt all sides of the steak. And I mean, you don't completely cover it, but you add the salt pretty liberally. And what it does is the salt gets sucked into the center of the meat. So if you leave it long enough, it will make the inside of the meat a little salty, and the outside will be very dry, so you can get a very good sear on it. And the trick is, the minimum I've ever tried or heard, watched it on YouTube, watch chefs, the minimum you want to do is a couple hours like that. But I'll leave the steaks in there for like 24 to 48 hours with the salt. And it really gets in there well. The outside's really dry. So when you do get it in a pan, it gets you a nice sear on that. And you don't have to put anything else, just the salt. Some people will put pepper also. And yes, I'll grab those big stalks of rosemary and put it on the grill and let it kind of smoke, or you can finish it in a pan with butter and rosemary after, and it's just beautiful.
Yes. Do you use a chimichurri? Do you make a chimichurri or whatnot, or do you kind of just go with salt and pepper?
Lately, I don't really make chimichurri very much anymore. I'm just good with the salt on the steak. Sorry, that's my Chewbacca alarm. To wake up for drive time. Yeah. But yeah, to chimichurri, the recipe that my brother, taught Pasta and me is parsley, Italian flat leaf parsley, cilantro, together, and the garlic and olive oil and salt and pepper, and a little chili pepper you put in too. So I do have a question.
When they want a steak, though, Miguel, they can't wait 24 hours, right? They got to get in there and they got to get it right away. So it does require a little planning. But I don't do it 24 hours. What I do is I do it in the morning. So if I'm going to have a steak tonight, it would be salted up now. Yeah.
That's fine. Yep, that'll work. The method works that way. You just need like a minimum of like 2-3 hours.
All right.
So
Yeah. So
I-
what's
I
on
do-
your mind otherwise?
I don't know what your topic is today, but I do have
Well,
a
here it is.
question, and
What have you heard?
I'm asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend. Well, let me ask you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Somebody's texting me a million questions about the show. They want to call in. And I'm like, well, just call on in. They're like, well, how do I call in if it's a YouTube show? I'm like, just call in. But how will they see my voice? Just call in. And everybody, we invite you to call
That's
in.
what I'm here for.
Exactly. 561-247-2721. So what have you heard? Where's your mindset? I mean, because this is something that happens with me, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if it happens with you, because this is what it's meant to happen, right? So the majority of news out there is not meant for the news snobs like us, right? We do a little bit more investigating. We have our sources. We look into it. The majority of news is made for the majority of the people out there. And it's to dupe them, to confuse them, to make them kind of forget what's going on, right? They throw so much noise at you. I can't remember what head of CIA said, that when the American people are so confused on what to believe, only then our operation will be complete. And that's where we're at right now. But where are we in your mindset? What have you heard where we're at in the Iran war? You there, Miguel?
You're asking me, Pasta?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Oh, sorry.
What have you heard? Because you're like the normie. I'm trying to get a semi-normie's perspective, even though you're not a normie, or a little bit more than you're knowledgeable than a normie, but you do still have a life and a lot of things going on. So where do you think we're at with the Iran? What have you heard lately?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. I haven't listened to cable news for months. So from that perspective, I have no idea. But from the mix of right, left, center, libertarian, far left, far right, center right that I listen to online, what I've heard is as of Friday, we had a peace deal in place, or at least the structure for it. And it wasn't just a typical Friday market manipulation. This was actually believable. It was written out with the names of various leaders of various countries. They were all spelled correctly, and it was a very believable framework that was put out on Truth Social. And all it took was one call from Netanyahu over the weekend, and by Monday afternoon, we had some conditions that were added to this peace deal that were impossible. One of which was that Israel gets to keep bombing Lebanon. Because I guess they're not done yet with the land grab. So that's what I heard. But again, I'm not exactly a normie. So.
That is kind of accurate, and I think a lot of people are putting this thing on and saying, "Oh, it's Israel once again." Netanyahu's calling the shots. They didn't want to go with the deal. There was a video of Ben Gvir out there going, "We won't allow Donald Trump to make us have a deal with Lebanon, which will allow us to stop bombing them." The guest that's coming on today, she'll be on in 7 minutes. My co-host Karen Kwiatkowski. She'll even talk about. We kind of agree that a lot of this going on is to distract. Everybody's paying attention to Iran, Strait of Hormuz, Iran. You got the Lego movies, all that stuff. Meanwhile, very little news and very little is being talked about, at least on the mainstream, when it comes to Israel and what they're doing in Beirut. And they are just seem to be taking more and more and more land. But let me say this much. From what I was told from a friend of mine, a source in Iran, who pays very close attention to what's going on with Hezbollah, which, by the way, I think we're going to make a shirt that says "I love Hezbollah" or "I love Hamas," because people can't understand what these resistance groups are. They have controlled the narrative by saying that these groups are terrorist groups. These groups are terrorist groups. No, these groups are part of the resistance. These groups are the only groups that were willing to fucking stand up and fight for the people. In Hezbollah's case, for Lebanon, and Hamas's case in Gaza, right? So they're not. They weren't conformed. They weren't formed, these groups, to terrorize Israelis or terrorize the Lebanese people. They were formed because these countries were being terrorized by Israel. right? And this is something why this is the thing when you were talking about Bernie Sanders the other day with a lot of the shit libs inside the Congress, and I cannot stand Hamas. They're doing that because at the end of the day, it will be a justification for Israel to continue to bomb women and children. Point blank, bottom line, we have to understand who these groups are. This is one thing that Anna Kasparian put up a couple weeks ago too as well, when she was acting, and now all of a sudden the Young Turks are back into the spotlight. Besides all their bad takes, here they come. And she's like, I hate Hamas. And I've seen, what's her name? The Congresswoman, Rashid Tlaib, do the same thing. They'll all badmouth and talk shitty about Hamas when Hamas and Hezbollah are the only ones that are willing to stand up for their people of the country. Now, with that being said, in Lebanon, Israel's taking a lot of territory, right? They're getting in there. They're bombing up to the Litani River. They want to expand greater Israel. From what I'm seeing, Hezbollah has now taken the gloves completely off, and they are pushing back and fighting pretty hard. So even though a deal might be struck with Iran, and this is what I was scared about, a deal struck with Iran, they go back to, all right, peace, here we go. The bombing stops in Iran. They make some deal in the Strait of Hormuz. The Gulf states say, okay, we're not going to allow the Americans to come back in and expand their territory, because that's a big thing too as well. And that's why, really, to tell you the truth, Iran really has the upper hand, because if we attack Iran, I hate to say we, if the deep state or the military-industrial complex or the empire attacks Iran, hits their desalination plants, hits their energy infrastructure, they have the ability to hit the Gulf states, and it's lights out. It's inhabitable in a lot of those states. So they really can't go ahead and do what they're doing. Guys, I'm going to bring in our caller and our guest, Miguel. I'm with Miguel Santiago. You're calling Drive Time, a brand new show, a soft opening this week. You can call on in 561-247-2721. It is 561-247-2721. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us, she's a regular on The Judge, The Nap Show. Where's Bill Riley at? Somebody get him. Karen Kwiatkowski's here this morning. Karen, where's your coffee? Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I have it right here.
How do you drink your coffee? Milk, cream, or just black?
Preferably cream, milk if I don't have cream, and black if I have neither.
It all depends. But you got cows. Can't you just go out?
Yeah, right.
No?
I have a great deal of appreciation for people that can milk their own cows and produce their milk, because that is not as easy as it sounds. First off, I have beef cows, and they're far, far from home. They're in the field. There's no way.
Okay.
But, yeah, I buy it.
Oh.
Gotcha. Understood. See, with those of us who have never lived on a farm or had any animals other than dogs, cats, and maybe some goldfish don't understand that whole life. It just, you think, oh, my Lord, they can go on out there and go ahead and just milk a cow real quick for breakfast. Really quickly, Colonel, before we get started, I've lost 4 friends this year to cancer.
Oh, no.
I know, it's been crazy. One of my close friends, Ronnie Rose, in January, he was 47 years old. He was diagnosed. 13 months later, he was dead. Another friend of ours, her name is Shanda Master. She was a podcaster too as well. And my other good friend, Sandra Oles, who had just lost, she's 57. Shanda was 51. But Sandra was, she wrote this, she had a Substack, and it was called The Alchemist Dream. And I met her on Tinder. We went on a Tinder date, but we just became close friends. And she was kind of a conspiracy theorist. Now a lot of the conspiracy theories are kind of dragged into, the mainstream, especially since Epstein. But the reason why I love you, Karen, is because you're a military personnel. And there's a lot of things the military doesn't have to tell the public, because in the name of, what's the national security, right?
Yeah.
I just want to read a passage from the book I took from her really quickly. She has all these things. Today, it says, anyone can find the dirt in someone. Be the one that finds the gold. How we look at things are so important. I think we're so kind of set out to be divisive and at each other's throats, that we see people, we start kind of like judging and nitpicking the negative. This is something I love, that because I always say, I'm going to see the good in people. And I think that's allowed me to always be able to talk to conservatives or people who thought different than me, and military personnel and all that stuff. What are your thoughts? Are you still with us, Miguel?
Yes, sir.
Miguel Santiago is on the line. And by the way, if you call, you'll go into a queue now. That's why we got this number. So just stick with us. Do we have anybody in the queue yet, Josh?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. Anyway,
We're talking about the Iran war right now that might be back up. Where are we at in your understanding, Karen? Because it's really hard with Donald Trump saying every day that they got to. I mean, the last tweet was ridiculous. If they come up with their hands up, and they admit that their Navy's sunk, and they say, 5 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cross their fingers and say promises that they're not going to do anything again, then we're done. Where are we at with this Iran war right now?
Well, it was a huge mistake to do it. Trump did it. Netanyahu wanted him to do it. He did it. And so now we're trying to back out of it. We have gained nothing, and we've strengthened Iran. So Iran calls the shots. Iran has been very consistent with what it is that they require. But there's one other additional problem of all the things that they require, and that is that we cannot be trusted. We or Israel cannot be trusted to stand by our word, to stand by our signature, if you ever got to the point of a signature. So we are not trusted. So Iran not only holds the cards in the strategic initiative, they also need us to prove, before anybody goes forward with anything, that we can be trusted. But we can't be trusted. So that's really Trump's problem. He's got a public relations problem domestically. Obviously, we all know about that. We could talk about that for days, what he's done to this country and how people feel about, in particular, this war. But he's dealing with that. He wants to make it look like a win. But the problem is he's not even going to get a deal until he can prove that he's serious about the things that Iran requires of him to do. We cannot win this war militarily. In fact, again, we could talk about that for a long time too. We've kind of put ourselves in a really bad position. But right now, Iran is waiting for Trump to show them that he can be trusted. And so, obviously they're asking for some tokens, like unfreezing Iranian assets that have been frozen for 20 years or so.
Yeah, I saw that.
And if Trump does that, it's Trump's in a triple bind, because that makes him look weak domestically. But this is the situation. It's called, when you let your friends talk you into doing really stupid things, sometimes, you can't get out of it.
Caller, Miguel, you got something to say? I heard you trying to jump in.
Well, I'm always trying to bring it back to food. Have you ever had Lebanese food? You've got Israelis. So much of this is becoming about Lebanon. The last interview I heard for Israel, that is, the last thing I've heard from Marco Rubio is he's starting to frame the issue as Lebanon is a separate issue, and it always will be. And he's trying to build a wall between the two issues so they can maybe negotiate a peace with Iran, but still have chaos in Lebanon, so Israel can continue to fight. But I was going to say, Lebanese have some great hummus.
The best.
I talk to my Israeli friends, they'll say their hummus is the best. But we've got to preserve these cultures. We've fought 7 wars in the Middle East. We're bombing some people that make some beautiful food, that have beautiful cultures. Imagine if these countries were putting their energies toward curing cancer instead of fighting each other.
Miguel, we've had conversations before, right? So me, Miguel, he talked on the show the other day. We were leftists, we knocked on doors for Obama. He knocked on doors for Bernie. Same thing. We come from that area. Is there, Karen, an inherent issue with the conservatives where they are, just because of the programming or whatever else, xenophobic towards Islam? I mean, we hear the information out there that, oh my God, Muslims are trying to get rid of Christians. And, it's like, now we see all these things on the internet where they're debating out there and they start going, all right, let's go over the book, tick for tack. And this is the reason I'm not an atheist. I'm more of an agnostic. But the reason why I don't want religion inside our politics is because it's all allegories, right? I mean, it's like you can't. What do you take serious? What do you don't take serious? If it's good for you, it's okay, but don't bring it in to make my laws. Don't bring it into the government. Yeah. Is there an issue inherently with conservatives in this country towards Islam? And is that really the reason why we can get away with all this bombing in the Middle East? Go ahead.
There could be. Now, I forget which one is the evil party and the stupid party, but I want to say the Republicans are the stupid party. I could be wrong because I don't know how that thing goes. But what you have with conservatism, and we want to contrast that with classical liberalism, which is what libertarians are, right? Classical liberalism is about the individual, freedom, liberty, free markets, all that. Okay. The Republicans as a party, the modern Republican Party, not the old anti-war Republican Party, because they were classical liberals, but that was 100 years ago. So what the Republican Party has evolved into is a statist party. So it wants control. It doesn't really want freedom. It's not very tolerant. It doesn't understand economic liberty. Okay. And so that's the modern Republican Party. Now, how did Trump get elected? Remember who hated Trump when he first ran in 2015, 2016, when he was being primaried? It was the conservatives, the anti-liberty conservatives, what we would call rhinos. But now Trump calls Thomas Massie a rhino. So he's kind of reversed that. He doesn't really know what a rhino is. But the conservative movement, the Republican core, hated Trump at the beginning, did everything they could. Remember, they put up Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio.
The establishment.
Yeah. So they are afraid of liberty. They are stupid, intellectually stupid. They're willing to tolerate inconsistencies. They say, well, we fight for freedom, but they don't believe in economic liberty. They don't believe in freedom of, First Amendment freedoms, that kind of thing. So when Trump garnered enough support from the other parts of the population, which like liberty, which responded to the message of MAGA. If you think about what Trump was saying, he said, end the wars, bring the troops home, keep the money here, make America great, right? Have liberty. People would have everything better, all people. And he appealed. Trump got votes from all of the, ethnics. He got Catholics and Protestants. He got Hispanic vote. He got more black vote than we'd ever seen before for a Republican, because he was drawing on the non-conservative thinking out there, which he then promptly, both terms, has betrayed. But he very drastically betrayed that kind of classic liberalism body in this country. And that's where we find commonality between Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents. It's in this idea, which really is something that we like to think of as our American idea that we're going to be celebrating in this 250th year. And that is the individual. That is liberty. That is a very limited state that is constrained by law. That's what we're celebrating this year. Trump has rejected all that. And he is part of the rhino establishment Republican. They don't know what freedom is. Pretty stupid. And they use religion, much as states throughout history, governments have used religion, and that is as a control mechanism, as an indoctrination mechanism. And so you say, the question is, what is it about Republicans and Islamics? What is it? Well, if you go to a church or a political rally and you're repeatedly told things that you don't bother to verify about Iran is run by a terrorist regime and they're trying to kill us, and you listen to Israeli propaganda, which is geared precisely to control the politics in this country to the advantage of the Israeli government, which, to their credit, I mean, hey, why wouldn't you do something like that if you could, right? You take care of your country first. But that's I think where it comes from. Now, when you look at the Massie election or the Massie defeat against the hands of a rhino supported by both Donald Trump and the state of Israel.
What's your thoughts about that right away?
Well,
what you've seen, does it seem a little fishy? Because I can help you out with that.
Mail-in ballots and night drops and some weird stuff goes on. He didn't seem to have a lot of popular support. But, we've seen this before. Yeah. I'll let people in Kentucky work that out. I think they will. But I was disappointed. But on the other hand, kind of like maybe Sun Tzu or maybe a philosophical approach to that. This is a loss that is really not a loss. It is leading to a great victory. People now understand how politics works. But I'll tell you, Massie, his example is really what people want. They want the Epstein files released, like Trump said. Trump made that a major plank of his campaign 2 years ago, and yet has now, refused to do it. All Massey has done is said, wait a minute, I thought you were going to do that. We should do that. That was a good idea. Let's do that. And so he's crucified for it. Massey didn't want the war overseas. Well, guess what? All the people who voted for Trump didn't want that either. But anyway, Massey's loss could be a good thing. He's unleashed for 7 months. People will be looking at how that election worked. What we've been able to see is the absolute intolerance by the Israel lobby for any dissent at all. Here we had 434 congressmen, for the most part, maybe 433 out of 435, who obeyed Israel at every turn. They let, Israeli lobby wrote bills that impacted Israel, and everybody's fine. And they all voted yes, except for one guy, except for Massey. And that was intolerable. What kind of totalitarianism is that? Yeah. So it's good to be able to demonstrate that. And I think, it looks like the election was a little hinky, but you know what? They all are. I mean, my God. I can tell you about a local election we had for Board of Supervisor. It was 17 votes. This is true statement. 17 votes separated the two guys. I think maybe 3,000 or 4,000 votes were cast, maybe just 3,000. I'm not even sure if it was that many. 17, 18 votes were separating these two people. And it turns out that the Board of Elections, the voting office, had mailed absentee ballots beyond the district. They had mailed absentee ballots to people all over the county. Well, this was a local district, one of 6 we have in the county. And those ballots were mailed out, and they came in, and they didn't know which ones they were, and they counted them. So that's total fraud. They should have redone the election. Did they? Of course they didn't. So you think elections are some kind of thing that, the God of elections, this is democracy. No, it's just a tool used by the powers that want to control you.
And you want to talk about the powers that want to control you? Yeah. There are 4 major companies that run the machines, whether they be ballot marking devices, which are the machines you cast a vote on, or the machines that count the votes. Mm-hmm. And one of those companies is called Hart Intercivic, right? You got Smartmatic, Hart Intercivic, ES&S, and Dominion. Dominion, for some reason, took the brunt of everything, even though ES&S has had so many more infractions. Well, Hart Intercivic in the Kentucky number 4th district of Kentucky, congressional district of Kentucky, blah 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 blah. Thomas Massey's district. Hart Intercivic are the ones that had the hardware and the software. So literally, Hart Intercivic is owned by HIG, which is a private equity firm. So you don't know who's involved, the stakes, who's holding the stakes involved in the election. But it's also started. The HIG was started by a guy by the name of Sam Kahn, who happens to be Blackstone director. He's a director. He's an operating director over at Blackstone right now. And he was involved with also the company that makes the ballot, Modern Litho. So the guy Blackstone, right? Talk about who's running our elections. And here's the thing. If you can't see the way the numbers are counted, and it's not transparent, and you have to take the word of a private equity firm that this is the count, their word on it, then you don't have an election, right? You have a complete captured system.
And I think that's one of the benefits of this spectacular thing that happened in the 4th district of Kentucky. We got to see that. And there are people that, the people in the county who they're looking around, they're saying, well, did you support the other guy? Did you support the other guy? And all the people in the county are saying, yeah, we wanted Massey. We've elected him so many times. He wins by big margin in these primaries. Who voted for Gallrein? Well, they're trying to find out who did. And so
couldn't find him at his party, at his victory party. Nobody was there, right?
Nobody there, yeah. Nobody there. So it's an interesting thing, and it is one of the. It's kind of like, it's kind of like everything. It's connected. You take the Iran war. We take our big fat military that we're so proud of, and we sent it over there, and it lost 42 airplanes and spent probably $60 to $70 billion just now, and they haven't won anything. Iran has not only not wavered on the things that they require, they've actually added a few things. They've added more than reparations. They've added, they will retain control of the strait, which they will. They have an organization with Oman to actually, to do this. And we are we're sitting there with this great big military and we're just kind of flapping in the water. You know, we're flailing. We're going, well, wait a minute. We bombed them. What the heck? Why didn't they respond to all our bombs? We have these great bombs, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys are missing the whole entire point. You aren't appropriate. You're trying to do stuff you can't do. And I think with these elections, when they get stolen or manipulated, or we see things that kind of makes us raise our eyebrows, we realize that system is corrupt. So I would extend the voting system being corrupt, and to our military being sold to us as something that can accomplish our whatever the president wants, and in fact it can't even do it. And I don't know if you saw last week, I think it was early last week, they had a Navy commander, admiral of some sort, and he was addressing Congress, and somebody asked him a question about how's this blockade working, and why aren't you escorting ships in and out? I mean, you're big military, you're supposed to be able to do that. And he explained why that. This is what he said, and just think about how silly this is. He said, well, we can't escort ships in and out of the strait until the strait is demilitarized, until Iran lets us do it. And this is what he said. And he said, so we're not going to. We can't do it. It's too high risk. We're not going to. So once the strait is clear and open, he said, then we can escort ships in and out. Well, if the strait is clear and open, there's no need for you to escort ships in and out. So this is the circular logic of our military and our military industrial complex. And I think people are waking up to it. Many people have already woken up to it, obviously, but more and more
waking
people
up to this now. They got nothing but bad news. You better have your coffee and get going. Yeah, we're still at war. We're still wasting money. Miguel, you got anything else to say before you get on out of here? Anything else you want to ask the judge?
Really a question for you, Pasta. I mean, I consider you one of the premier election integrity experts. I mean, you've been to countless countries to observe and evaluate their elections. As far as how they were voting in Kentucky, really the question is what are good election systems and what are bad in terms of the technology, the method of voting? What would have made it better there? What would make it better all over our country versus what you've seen in other countries?
Well, when people talk about George Bush, they often talk about the AUMF being a cancer. Only Karen didn't vote. I'm sorry. What's her name? Barbara Lee. Was it Barbara Lee from California was the only person to vote against the AUMF? That's when, the president kind of lobbied towards Congress, and they already had it written up. Hey, let's just give the president the power and the force to go to war at any time without coming to Congress, because now we have terrorism and we have to deal with that. There was also the Patriot Act that came out. I think Jerry Nadler was one of the authors of that particular bill, but George Bush signed it nonetheless, and unleashed crazy spying powers. Our civil liberties were trampled on. In the Patriot Act, I also believe there was a couple clauses when you look at it, it's very vague, but it kind of opened up the door to allow biological weapons testing go on, where there was also kind of like a pause or a halt. So people talk about those awful things, but there was also something that came out of the George Bush era. It was called the HAVA Act, Help America Vote Act. And what that really did was that put a piece of worm on a hook for all these states, that if they go along with all these hardware and software companies and use their hardware and software, the federal government will give them money to go ahead along with those processes. And it was coming off the heels of the hanging chad of the Florida election. Remember that? So what they tried to do was use as an excuse to get away from hand-marked ballots and get into more electronical ballots. Well, all these states took the bait, and now they're using all the software. And the main thing is we have a publicly funded election that is privately counted with proprietary software. So not only is their ownership proprietary, when I told you it's private equity firms, so you don't know who's holding the main stake in the election itself, but the software is also proprietary. So you have no way of confirming. In other words, it's not publicly verifiable. It's not open source. The public can't see it, can't do it. In Colombia, in Nicaragua, in Honduras, in Peru, all the election system is done in the purview of the people. You have to go to your designated spot to vote with ID, right? And this is leftist governments doing this. So when you hear the Democrats go, oh my God, ID is racist. Once again, the propaganda that comes not along. We have all these private equity companies, these zombie companies that are controlling our elections, but the propaganda has had both sides take the bait. Right now, the Republicans with the SAVE Act thinking that ID is going to save their elections. No, it's not. Not when you have mass mail-out ballots, because there's also no chain of custody, the way you have a chain of custody in all those countries I mentioned. So you have to go to your designated spot with your ID. You go into a room. In some countries, they call it a junta. Some places, they call it a mesa, which is a table. They use their schools, pretty much. You have your ID. You go and you go into it. You sign off. They check your ID. They make sure you're in the right place to vote. There's 400 ballots on the table. You take a ballot. You go into the ballot room. You put it in the box, and you're done. At the end of the day, they open this up in front of everybody. They count it out. If they have 150 ballots that have been voted on, they need to have 250 ballots left over. So it's matched up. This is done in front of the purview of the people. They count in front of everybody, and then they put the results on the door. All those results are then transferred to the central tabulation place, and those numbers are announced on election day. So what it is that we have to have a return to simplicity, to make it easy, to make it simple, to make it publicly verifiable. But all these things where you have days of voting, there's no security, there's no chain of custody. When you have mail-in ballots that once they're mailed out, you don't know who they're mailed out to, right? Then you have proprietary software. In my mind, in my personal opinion, with Thomas Massie, it was death by 1,000 cuts. Both Massie and his opponent had 20% of their votes were absentee mail-in ballots. So they both had that around. So I would say, and he lost by like 11,000 votes. So I'd say they probably had 3,000 to 4,000 Fugazi ballots in which they stuffed. I would say they flipped a couple of machines because the software is, once again, proprietary. Blackstone is the controlling interest. Blackstone doesn't want Thomas Massie in office. Blackstone wants him gone. So does BlackRock. So does all these companies. They don't want Thomas Massie there. He's going to mess up their industry of war, for crying out loud. Plus, a lot of their friends are in those Epstein files. So Blackstone doesn't want Thomas Massie there either. So I would say it was death by 1,000 cuts. I would say they probably put a couple ballots into the machine. They flipped some software. And at the end of the day, and the reason why is, you know, I hate that Andrew Yang made those hats that say math, because that's an election thing. If I look at the math of an election, I see what's going on, I can tell you probably where the cheating took place. However, we don't have the proper audit powers to go in there and look. We can't look at the software. We just got to take the word of Hart Intercivic, which is owned by HIG, which is run by Blackstone pretty much. We have to take their word on it. So a return to simplicity will be the way to really fix this. But they got the Democrats right now believing that if you don't have mail-in ballot boxes in the middle of nowhere, that you're being racist. That if you ask for ID, you're being racist. Like I've been in Nicaragua on dirt roads in a third world country, and my guide was like, they don't really let people in America vote without ID, do they? I'm like, yeah, because they could say that, you know, it's hard for some people to get an ID. They're like, why don't they just make it simple for somebody to get an ID? This is ridiculous. So, I mean, they got everybody twisted right now. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of the leftists, the Democrats, and it used to be a progressive issue. In my field, it was all progressives tried to deal with this because we saw the cheating of Bernie Sanders on the state level, on the county level. And this is who it affects most. And I tell this to people all the time. This election system cheats grassroots Democrats more than any fucking group out there, but yet they don't want to listen because Donald Trump is there. So your long answer, short story long, Miguel Santiago, is that a return to transparency, chain of custody, and done. It needs to be publicly verifiable. The public has to have confidence in it. It has to be done on the purview of the public, and they're not doing that at all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, I mean, if you're going to use software, it should be open source software.
Yes.
But you would prefer paper ballots with a strict, verifiable chain of custody of where those ballots are going throughout the counting process.
All time.
And you like ID. I mean, just to push back on ID, it's not only a race issue. I mean, there are people, probably some of your listeners, that would prefer to be off the grid, would prefer to never even get a social security number.
I
who
get
would
that.
prefer to have no ID and no government way to, verify where they are or who they are. And you know what? That's liberty. Our country was founded on principles like that. And that's a God-given right to have liberty and live that way off the grid. Those people aren't going to want to show ID either, So,
that's a libertarian thing.
It's not just, exactly.
Libertarian
thing.
And we got a libertarian here on the show. Well, kind of. But I call myself a leftist libertarian. I get it. But I listen. There are quagmires. If you give, also we don't have a holiday like all these countries that I went to. Voting's on a Sunday. It's a day off. The expediency to vote. One of the things they did was they broke the system to make people waiting for it. I remember voting in California, 3 hours to vote, 5 hours to vote. The kids in UCLA had to wait online 9 hours to vote. There was a free pizza line that if you waited in line, like a rich person could pay for pizzas and they would send it to people in line to eat it. And they tell the kids, stay there, stay there. They did that on purpose so they can push on mail-in ballots to people because we do it on a Tuesday during the work week. You don't know if you're going to get there. The vote centers where you can vote wherever you want. That's another way to eliminate the audit process because now you can't track the votes whatsoever. But I would say this much for those who don't want to have an ID, whatnot. Well, that is one thing that it's a quagmire where I haven't figured out that you can participate unless you have an ID. So if you don't want to vote, then you don't. If you don't want to have an ID, then I would say you can't vote. But that's just my personal opinion. But I don't think it's racist to ask for somebody's identification. So.
You also mentioned publicly funded elections, and I've always been in favor of that too. I think the last presidential election we had that was publicly funded, I think it was Carter versus Reagan. Mm-hmm. I may be wrong on that. Somebody could check my facts, but anyway,
the primaries are publicly funded. The primaries are publicly funded, and in Thomas Massey's,
But if we ban private money from being spent on elections, think of where that's going to leave us. The people that are really the candidates that are going to cut through and become known. When you talk about local elections, the biggest thing, and when they do surveys, they do like these public recognition surveys. If your name is recognizable at a local level, you're the favorite. So that's what they base it on. So really to get your name to cut through and become known by the public, if you can't use private money and you must only be limited to whatever the public funding is, I like the sound of that. But the downside I think of is what's that going to do? It's going to leave us, the people that are going to cut through the most are going to be celebrities, podcasters, movie stars. The wonky policy people who might be our best legislators that belong in Congress, how are they going to cut through when you got,
public access debates, public access debates,
and followers,
public access TV debate, publicly funded, where the people can't hide. Because that's another thing they do. They choose not to debate and hide in the shadows, so therefore they can't see. But you have to just counter that. So you have a publicly funded, public access TV debate, so somebody can't hide, right? So now the podcaster has to go against that policy wonk. It might get eaten up, and it will be cut up and played over and over again.
Let me jump in if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have congressional districts in this country. We're a large country. We're an empire, not a republic. We think we're a republic, but we're not. We're way too big to be an operational, functional republic with simple, non-computerized elections. Okay. If you took, current congressional district, 750 to 1.5 million people. When this country started many years ago, because we're celebrating a birthday and all that. So 250 years ago, we had 3 million people divided up into 13 unequal sized colonies. Okay. 3 million. And when they put the Constitution together, they had those, the congressmen and the 2 senators each. If you did that right now, how big would our Congress be? Okay. Because right now, if we said, okay, by those rules, 3 million people, we would have 3 congressmen 3 congressmen and probably 52 senators. I don't know how many senators it would be if it's two per state. We'd have 50 senators like we do now because that's written in the Constitution. But in terms of representatives, we would have 3 if it was the equivalent numbers. So you cannot ask the number of people that we have to say that that Congress is representing anybody. The solution to the problem of how can we elect grassroots people, it's exactly what Pasta said as far as the tracking ballots, chain of custody, no mail-in, all that stuff. That's all part of it. But what we need, and of course it sounds ludicrous, is a Congress that probably is filled with probably 2,000 congressmen. Okay, and now what you have is a massive parliamentary, almost, it would end up being a parliamentary system because, just as you said, the well-known people in the counties and the local areas would be put forward into there, and you would have a very much now, would you get anything done? Well, from a libertarian perspective, no, we wouldn't get anything done. We'd certainly never have wars because you couldn't get all these people to agree. They would debate incessantly forever. From a libertarian perspective, that's just fine. But what we have here is we're trying to say that the United States, 350 million people or so, we want to get all of them to vote, all the adults to vote. We want 200 million people to vote and funnel their voices and their power and their intentions into a tiny little controlled body in Washington and somehow expect that they're going to represent. They are not going to represent. Massey is a tiny example from a tiny little rural Kentucky, district that he actually represents. And what did they do? They destroyed him with the system, the electoral system, the political system, the publicity system. So you can't ask, we need a better system, okay? But don't expect us to get it without major structural change, and stop thinking that this is a republic. We do not live in a republic. You cannot have a republic of 350 million people. Does not work. It does not exist. We are an empire. So we shouldn't be an empire, but you got to fix that too. You can't just fix the voting system and say, well, how do we get a better grassroots congressman to be a part of 435 other congressmen, and that's going to make a difference? It's not. The guy who's the nail that stuck up, that was Massey most recently, got hammered down. And that will continue to happen until we really understand what it is we're dealing with. So we've got a bigger problem than just that.
There was a 350% increase in votes for his opponent in that election. That's mathematically impossible. Mathematically impossible. I'd come close to. I'd say it's mathematically improbable. I mean, but that's the problem. When you say that it's mathematically improbable, they'll give you the line from that movie Dumb and Dumber. Remember that, Miguel? So you're still 1 in a million chance that we can get together, Mary Swanson. So you're still saying there's a chance. Brother, thanks for calling in. We love you. Continue to call in, man. We got to get to a couple callers.
Thank you. Thank you, Pasta. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Colonel Karen, he was saying nice to meet you. So.
Oh, yes. Nice to meet you too.
You got to address her as Colonel Karen or just Karen. Karen is not a Karen. My Karen is not a Karen. Whoever did that shit, Josh. Sleepy J is our engineer, and he's the guy over there. Sleepy, you can say hi to Colonel if you like.
Hello, Colonel. I'm a big fan.
Oh.
We have a caller. Who is it? Where you calling from?
You're on the air.
We see you. We can't hear you.
Hello?
I bet you the person went off to get coffee right when we come. I want to ask you a question when I want him to come on. Hello,
Caller.
All
right, I'm killing it.
No. Let's see. All right.
You can call back.
We'll wait for the call. Guys, you're watching Drive Time. It's a brand new show. We got like 12 people or 13 people over on 16 people over on the Rumble. We got about 16 people over on the YouTube. A couple people over. We don't have anybody on the Facebook yet. I got to fix it.
Did you check that?
I haven't gone on Facebook in a while, though. So, it looks like the call's back. Caller, where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Don.
From where?
You don't hear me? Hello?
We hear you.
You can't hear me, huh? You don't hear me?
We hear you.
Oh, good. Okay.
You got to turn off
Hello.
the sound on your computer and just put on the sound on your phone.
I don't understand that. I'll call you back on my phone. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Call.
Bye.
Just call on the phone. People try to use Skype over here or other phones. What's going on? It's crazy. So there's a couple things I wanted to talk to you about today. Tulsi was one of them, right? Is the call back yet? No. Tulsi is one of
Not
them.
yet.
Iran, obviously, we talked about that. We talked about Massey's elections. But I want to talk about Hamas and Hezbollah. I do, because this is important.
All right, welcome back.
Here I am.
You there?
Yeah.
All right, Don.
I'm here.
Don DeBarge. No, Don DeBar, not DeBarge. So you're on with Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. Thank you for calling the show. This is Drive Time in the Morning. So here's the question, and I have a little bit of a quagmire because I have to get more coffee. On a 2-hour show, I need a coffee machine next to me or something. But I'm 30 seconds away to grab some coffee and come right back. But Don, I'm going to ask you, right? If you don't know who Don DeBar is, you don't know his work. He's a journalist. He's been on the radio for many, many years. The guy has done great stories. I remember doing a show, Karen, with Don, where we had Angela McArdle, was the ex-libertarian chair. We had on Mel K, who is a Trumper, conservative right-winger, and then Don DeBar, who I wouldn't say could we say you're an ex-Democrat, that at one point you were a Democrat, but he's kind of like me, an anti-imperialist leftist. Don is more of a Marxist, but a real Marxist, right? And not what the right would call a what's that thing they call the stupid Marxist, the cultural Marxist, that shit that was made up by the CIA. Yeah. Marx wasn't even around when they made that turn up, and that was to bastardize Marxism. But that's who Don is. So he's got a little bit of knowledge going on. Don, I'm going to start with you because I don't want to get the Colonel in too much trouble right off the bat. I'm thinking about making a shirt
Lieutenant
that
Colonel,
says,
right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about making a shirt that says, I love Hamas. The reason why I'm thinking about making that shirt, okay, is because the way that people talk about Hamas and Hezbollah is so wrong. They're part of the resistance.
Yes,
they weren't created to terrorize Israelis. They were created because Israelis were terrorizing the Lebanese people. That's why Hezbollah, and in Gaza, Hamas. Can you explain exactly who you think Hezbollah and Hamas is? And then we'll get the Colonel's opinion, because it seems like the narrative control, the way they control the narrative, is that they've demonized these two groups more than anything. So it justifies the continued bombing of civilians, mainly women and children. Don DeBar, please go right ahead. I'm going to grab some coffee.
Well, it's first of all, hello, Karen. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good. So, I mean, it's right in the name. Hamas is an abbreviation, which in essence, it translates in English to Islamic Resistance Movement. It's resistance. It sprung up in occupied Gaza and in occupied Palestine, but Gaza was directly occupied from 1967, if memory serves, until about 2005, 2006. Then when the occupation, quote unquote, ended, by the way, you couldn't go in or out of Gaza with the Israelis' permission, and you couldn't import and export things like food and whatever products you wanted to send either way.
Concrete.
Border.
Concrete.
Yeah, anything. Concrete, toys, medicine, petrol, whatever, without, the Israelis' permission, quotas, and very often either an Israeli broker or purchased through an Israeli intermediary company, things that were coming in and out from around the world. But that's after the occupation ended, quote unquote, in 2005, 2006. The first election that they held in the aftermath of the occupation was won, and pretty overwhelmingly, actually, by Hamas as a political party. And the minute that happened, the Israelis intensified first of all, they said that the election was stolen. They didn't recognize the election. And a whole lot. They basically started making war on Gaza after they ended the occupation. It's almost like I break into your house, I take over your house, and you know what? I'm leaving your house. Me and my friends are going to stand around your house and shoot into it for a while. And that's been since 2006, 2007. Starvation and bombings on the regular. And so I don't know what is Hamas? Hamas is the only semi-organized force resisting that. So you can term that however you like. You can look at whatever rhetoric they use to try to organize the remnants of the society that was there before the Israelis, before the European settlers. Let's be clear about this, because people have a real hard time with ethnicity. Who's a Jew? Who's not? Are they Jews? Are they this? These are white European settlers, just like the ones who came to this hemisphere and genocided half the population or more, like the ones that went to Africa and did everything that they did in Africa with millions and millions of dead people. I mean, the Belgians killed a few million people in the 20th century alone. In Belgium, I don't think they have more than a few million people. These are the same program, the same playbook, but we needed, quote unquote, we descendants of those people needed a little foothold there so we could control the resources. And so the mythology of the West, Jesus' ancestors, Abraham, Moses, all that crap, God spoke to them, promised them this land. So there was, in the aftermath of all of the horrors that were done by Hitler, and they were horrors, by the way, and they were done also to Russians and Ukrainians and everybody else too, by the way. After all of that, we had a people without a land because we don't feel safe anywhere. And these are Europeans that are saying this, and a land without a people because the Palestinians were invisible because they're not white Europeans. And that was terrorism from the mid to late 19th century through last Tuesday is the genesis of the state of Israel, so-called.
What do you think, Karen? I'll get you I Love Hamas t-shirt. You'll wear it?
Yeah. And it's exactly right. And one of the, I guess somebody commented about, Israeli funded Hamas, I think through Qatar for many years at a high level. Netanyahu himself was part of this. And of course they did it because that was that was the resistance movement in Gaza that was more, had a little more credibility, a little more aggressive than the PLO, which the Israelis had pretty much, they had ways of controlling that. So, Israel wants war and they want to take the opportunity to exterminate these enemies. And you talk about, what the Native American population, how when the Europeans came, our ancestors, I guess, came and did that. And that kind of extermination and that kind of devaluing of human life, if it's in your way, it's exactly what we're seeing here in the 21st century, but we're not used to it. We have gone, I think most people on the planet have recognized what colonialism and neocolonialism looks like, and we don't support it. This is everybody. You say, well, you could ask your average rhino, and do you support neocolonialism around the world? And he's going to say no. He or she is going to say, no, I'll support that. Of course, they do. They bought into a system which looks very much like that. But anyway, yeah. I would happily wear a Hamas t-shirt. Now, my other thing as a libertarian is, what's my American version of the Hamas t-shirt? Because I really want that one. I want to wear that one too. Because the people in this country, we need to take care of our own country. Part of the problem is our government is very disconnected from the people. You ask the people, do they support what's going on in Gaza? Well, Americans don't support that. Americans by far do not support genocide. We are actively opposed to it. We are disgusted by it. So, I also need my American version of the Hamas t-shirt because I have to say, this is you're right about the European settlers and also it wasn't that the Palestinians were invisible. They saw the Palestinians. They believed they would be able to militarily kill them, and which they did. They knew they were exterminating human beings. It's not like, I don't see Palestinians. I'm in the land of Israel and I don't see They saw them. They targeted them, and they said this will be an easy kill for us, and they did. And they've been doing that since before 1948, really. But
I've been disgusted because people will say, and I don't know, I would like your guys' opinions about this, about well, we wouldn't be here if we didn't come and colonize and kill all the Indians off, and we did it. Why, can't Israel do the same? I mean, I know that's a stupid fucking statement, but you hear stupid shit like that. I mean, because there are people who don't want it, but there are a lot of people who still justify this simply in the name of team sports, right? Donald Trump is still pulling some people out there. His poll numbers might be low, but he still has idiots supporting him online. I don't know. There's Glenn Greenwald has an episode of Surrounded where he sits in the middle, and you should hear some of the people that make excuses on why peace is war, war is peace. We have to do this, so we have to stop further violence in the Middle East. If we don't take out Iran now, they're the world sponsors of terrorists, which, by the way, I think there's zero Iranian terrorists that have ever attacked us directly. I don't think there's been any Shia. It's been mostly Sunni, is radicalism. Once again, I hate when people say Sunni, Shia. We fund it. It comes from the United States. We supported the Mujahideen, which split off into Al-Qaeda and all these other groups. We do that all the time. We always go in and fund the most radical group in any country. We did it with the Contras in Nicaragua, right? We do this because we want that country to be destabilized so we can extract the resources for pennies on the dollar. Yeah, I mean, number one, that's Hamas, and I think you guys explained it pretty well, but they're still using that as an excuse. Don, what are your thoughts on what you're seeing going on right now in Iran? Colonel Karen talked about it earlier, but do you see this coming to an end? And if it does come to an end, how will Lebanon, is Hezbollah strong enough in your mind to hold off and regain and run Israel back out of Lebanon like they did once before?
Yeah. First, I just want to clarify something. When I said before about people without a land without a people, and the Palestinians being invisible and Gaza being invisible, I meant to the people who were, propagating that bullshit. Basically, that was widely held fantasy among people that were proponents of the state of Israel. So I just want to be clear. I see them just fine. I don't have a problem seeing people.
Oh no, I know that
they're not lit up with white skin or whatever. Yeah, gotcha. No,
well, actually, if there's a whole set of Zionist fairy tales that were told even before they even got to Israel. The whole, this plan had been worked on for quite some time, and the storyline or the propaganda around it included many things that weren't true. And it's not just that there's no people there. There was a bunch of other stuff that was kind of sold and actually not really bought very well by many European Jews who did not want to go there. They were Europeans and they wanted to stay in Europe. And it's a huge project of propaganda to even get the number of European Jews that they got to go to Israel, or I should say, to go to Palestine.
Yeah. I mean, there's talks that they were doing their own bombing, right, in other countries. The IDF was secretly bombing other countries, trying to make it look like terrorists. Like, you need to come to Israel because you're the only place you're going to be safe. Israel doing it themselves.
They're still doing it as of 3 or 4 or 5, 6 weeks ago, where they bombed a Jewish center in Iran. They do not want. In fact, I think one of the reasons they hate Iran more, it's not so much a ballistic missile or so-called fantasy nuclear threat. It is the fact that Iranian Jews are extremely well treated and happy and don't want to move to Israel, even though they think, well, of course you're already in the Middle East. Why don't you just come over and be part of Israel? And they're like, actually, we're Iranian. We like it this way. It's good. So this is a part of the argument.
Yeah, people don't minds around it. So I wanted to deal with what Pasta said, because first, one of the things that, I've been grappling with this shit for 50-something years now, okay, and befuddled about a lot of things, sort of like getting from my understanding of something that I've had maybe again recently acquired on the way to trying to fit it into what the frig is really going on in the world. So the T-shirt is a perfect example of this. And what you were saying is an example of that. You're talking about how you have like red team, blue team cheerleading going on as part of the discourse all the time. All these things are done, and propagated and, publicized to excite like the anti-red sentiment in blues and the anti-blue sentiment in reds, as if there were some major policy decisions. There's a psychological phenomenon I think Freud identified, or in any event referenced, where the most intensive hatred and displeasure that gets excited in people is towards other people who are almost identical to them, except for one insignificant trait. Like if everyone looked alike and some people had like blue eyes and some people had hazel eyes, and those were the only two eye colors, the blues and the hazels could be excited to hate each other. That this is just some kind of part of our wiring or our ingrate culture, like the first time we started fighting over bananas or something. and so this is used to keep a really narrow band of conversation and thought in the public discourse. And it's very effective. And just look around. Now, the problem is, if you're going to communicate to people to try to break through that, if you don't speak the language that they understand, they're not going to get it. And what you're going to do instead is excite that same hatred of the other in them towards the idea you're selling, or even you personally, which we've all experienced, I'm sure, from time to time. And so on the one hand, I would proudly wear a Hamas T-shirt, like I proudly own my Make Israel Palestine Again red hat that looks like Trump's hat, only it says Make Israel Palestine Again, gladly home and with my friends. Publicly, if I put that thing on, not a fucking thing that comes out of my mouth is going to be heard by the people I'm trying to talk to. This is a fact. And so it's something we got to grapple with. And it's something that I've only recently even had the courage to admit to myself, this is true, and this is the environment that you're dealing with. That if you're using mass communications because you want to persuade people, you got to use mass communications in a way that's effective. And if you kick people in the face with the things that they hate, when you introduce yourself to them, they ain't going to hear a fucking thing after that.
This is the issue with immigration in this country, that every single time, and I was talking about it with Karen before you called in. Guys, you're listening to Drive Time in the Morning. I'm here with Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. She will be our Wednesday co-host. She, I used to like to get her before she went on Judge Knapp. Isn't it funny how Judge Knapp is one of my favorite shows? Bill Riley's in the chat. He's been calling in for the last couple of days. We call him Entenmann's Bill. He's from Ossining too. We were laughing. We're old school lefties, and the best show out there right now is Judge Knapp, a guy who was on Fox 10 years ago. Everything's turned upside down, for crying out loud. But this is one of the issues out there, guys, and I wish we can find a way to figure this out. Maybe people in the audience have a suggestion if you want to call in. How do we deal with the fact that so many people, especially on the conservative side, right, hold immigration as one of the big problems that we have here in America, right? Like they think that if we fix the immigration problem, all the rest of the problems will fall into place. I can't figure it out. I always say, why aren't you looking at empire? The reason why a lot of these people are here is because we expand our military and we put it all over the world. We got 1,000 bases almost. We go to these countries. We make sure they're destabilized as possible. Then we can extract the resources for pennies out of the dollars. Like my good friend Don said in one other show, yeah, we dig their shit out of the dirt in their country, we bring it over here, and they're just following their shit here to America, hopes to get a little trickle down when they get here. That's about the crux of the fucking situation, but yet we can't get past it. Karen, you got anything to say about this? Do you have a solution? That's why I brought you on, so you can be the solution person.
Yeah.
Possible question.
It's a hard question. I would challenge the idea that the average Republican voter is anti-immigration. The average one. I don't, let's just say the MAGA people. Now, Trump said, the wall. He ran on the wall twice, and that was a big thing for him. And he did actually reduce, he closed that wall down, I think, to some extent. Although what he did is he reopened the corporate immigration loopholes. He's all about A1B and all that. If your corporate guys want it, but if you look at the actual person in America, which I'm talking about the Walmart shopper, let's just go there because that's the guy. I'm a Walmart shopper. Okay, so if you look at the average American, he's not really an active part of either party. He's not paying attention to politics. They're more. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what makes a Walmart shopper more mad than immigration, is when they see a homegrown American with a cart full of expensive stuff that the working American can't afford, and he pays for it with a government issued debit card. And there is no foreigner involved. These are all, every one of them's born in America, 5-6 generations. But there's this sense of some people are connected to largesse of the government, and other people are shafted by the government. And so I think the political parties throw immigration in there to an extent to say, well, this is the reason you've got all these immigrants, and they kind of create a problem, much as Netanyahu did with funding Hamas, so that the target would, oh, you can't have them, we got to get rid of them, creating a problem where none exists. Because if you look at actual America, the people, the working people, the struggling people, their intermarriage is a huge thing. There's all kind. We're mixing and mingling just like we did, 200 years ago. I'm just telling you, it's another kind of a made up issue. Trump has used it, just like he used Epstein files, just like he talked about the swamp when really he was a part of it. They were all his buddies. You can use it to separate people. But I also like what was said earlier about the people that are most like us are our problem. Because what I was thinking of when he said that is, when someone gets murdered, okay, which, crime shows are all the rage, right? Everybody watches crime shows. Everybody pays attention to that. But when someone gets murdered, who do we know did it? A family member. Somebody gets beat up.
Yeah.
Abused.
Yeah.
It's mostly, but what's the tagline that comes out of Hollywood? Oh, it's the unknown. It's the guy. It's the serial murderer who's traveling around. Nobody knows he's got the white van. That's what it is. And sometimes it is that. But usually, when abuse, murder, rape, any of the bad things, forgery, writing.
I don't mean to jump in real quick, Colonel. I don't mean to jump in real quick, but I just want to solidify what you're saying. The majority of immigrants, legal and illegal, in this country get arrested and booked on a far less rate than American citizens, especially American white citizens. Far less rate per capita.
That wouldn't surprise me one bit. That wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Please continue. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of things that are made up, just like we do with our neocolonialism abroad. We make up stuff to separate people and to make people scared. And honestly, we have a big problem with Israel, because Israel, they have no humanity towards their neighbors. They want to kill them all. Babies, and they'll say that. The population is warped in that way. But why is it warped in that way? It's not Judaism that does this. It is political Zionism, and it is the state stoking fear. And I was just watching something, they have viewing centers where Israeli citizens Israeli Jews particularly go to watch and look at Gaza with their extended telescopes and binoculars. And somebody was interviewing these people, and they said, well, how do you feel? How do you feel looking at this? And they all said in different ways, this is great. This makes me feel safer, because all those people, men, women, and children, first off, they're all against us. They're all armed Hamas. And every one of them wants to kill me personally. Now, obviously, that is irrational, stupid, not true. But that is what they are taught. That is what the state needs them to believe in order for the state to continue its support by the people. So we have this game that's played. And in Israel's case, it's, of course, very brutal and very ugly. And we go, oh, my God, how could that be? But that same game is played in the United States. The government, the parties, the powers that be, they have stories that help us fight each other. Immigration, illegal immigration, that's such a negative effect. It's not a negative effect. Immigration built this country, and like you said, they're not going to our jails. Most immigrants that are working and raising their families are extremely law-abiding. Okay, so but what do we hear? No, it's all the narco. It's all the they're doing all these bad things. Well, that stokes fear, and fear shuts down the frontal lobes, right? We can't, when we are scared, we stop thinking. And so our government, both parties, love us to stop thinking. They want us. They need us to stop thinking, and so this is one of the tools that they use.
Yeah. How do we beat that back then? I mean,
Well, we have to help people think, and we have to help them not be afraid. And this is you do need common ground. You wear a Hamas T-shirt or any T-shirt. I could wear a libertarian. I could wear a Ron Paul T-shirt, and half of the rhinos are going to go, "Oh my God, it's a Ron Paul person." Whatever they say is devalued. We can't listen to that. It's crazy. They want to tear the country down. So you can't scare people. And this is actually a place where women, which we don't see in the libertarian movement as much as we should. But this is a place where women, and I don't mean Hillary Clinton women, because to me, she but this is a place where women should have a little bit of an advantage if they will embrace true feminism, which is how we raise our kids, right? Obviously, any mother has probably screamed at their kids. There's no doubt we scream at our kids when we are raising kids, but we also do things that are comforting to them, that bring them in. We try to get down at their level and say, tell me what you're thinking. Okay. We've got to do that as a society with the people that are right now not thinking. Okay. And so we say, tell us what you're thinking. And they go, I'm not thinking, I'm scared. Okay. So start there and work from that. So I think that's what we got to do. If you're going to fight state propaganda, and it's very, very powerful, and it reaches into, with AI and with, electric voting, all these things, it is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
But we've got
propaganda. The propaganda. It is propaganda,
but you can break through it. You can break through it. And some of the things, obviously, everybody knows this. I don't care if it is, you're in a car wreck, you have a fender bender. If you go in, if somebody hits you, somebody tail ends you, or you tail end somebody, and you get out and talk, if the first thing you say is, I can't believe you did that, okay, and you're done, right? But if the first thing you say is, oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? It starts. And then you work together, you solve the problem. We've got to approach our political problems more like that. Our political problems are a train wreck. They are a car wreck on the highway. People are getting hurt. So we need to bring out something in ourselves that allows us to connect with all these other people. We have more in common than we do that separates us. There's no doubt.
Karen, I'm glad you said that stuff, because I needed I needed that piece of advice, because I don't know.
Me too.
Well, I'm at a point now where I'm yelling at my conservative friends, where I want to throw a coffee cup at their head. Like, what are you, fucking stupid? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm past the point, because I made my whole, since I've been doing this, it's been 8 years, but really early off the jump, coming from the Bernie Sanders movement, coming from the left, being a protester in the streets, marching with teachers, nurses, all that stuff. I'm one of the only guys out there probably that you'll see that I support the protests in Minnesota that are anti-ICE, and I supported the protest in January 6th for Stop the Steal, because the majority of those people wanted just some transparency and some fair elections, right? There was a small group of people who broke through, but that wasn't the majority of people. So, I have that diversity, right? And I've always been one to talk to people on the other side, to talk to conservatives. But I'm at the point now, like I said, I want to throw my coffee cup at them, because the bullshit they're making. I never thought we would hit the level of hero worshiping that we hit with Barack Obama. People hero worship that guy like it was going crazy. Hey, I'm not crazy about Barack Obama's political, policies in Syria. What are you, racist? You're a white man? Who are you to talk about him like that? Well, I'm not crazy about what he's doing in Libya either. What are you? Islamophobic because his middle name is Hussein? I'm like, I'm actually sticking up for an Islamic nation over here, a Muslim country over here that he's bombing. And you guys are twisting. I never thought we would hit that level of hero worshiping until the Trumpers came along and they said, hold my beer. Now, yes, there's been a lot of people that have walked away. Yes, there's a lot of people who said, well, my bad, might be, but there are still people out there making excuses on the reg. And this whole pivot to now, let's go vote for Tucker Carlson. What are you, fucking nuts? This guy wants to usher in goddamn Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance. That's what he's all about. Why is it that some people, and that's the last part I want to get to, Don. I know you got to get out of here, but I do want to play this. because Don is an expert in this, and I want to get Colonel Karen's opinion on this, right? Let me just bring it up. There are these groups of populist right conservatives that conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. But for the most part, they're getting all the play right now, pushing back against Israel. Candace Owens, Dan Bilzerian, who's now running for Congress here, right? Stu Peters, Nick Fuentes, Lucas Gage, all these people, Myron Gaines, Leandra Johnny, they're getting thousands, if not millions of views. They're being the voice of anti-Zionist instead of people like we know, Cynthia McKinney, who was the old school goat, went over on a flotilla and spent some time in a prison in Israel way before anybody thought it was cool and trendy to do so. All these voices that were out there, like Don's for years talking about this, all the leftist voices, the anti-imperialist leftists that didn't play into the culture war shit, that were common sensed and even keeled, they're not getting the credit. These people are getting the credit. And I don't know if you would put Candace Owens in a group of being anti-Semitic. I do think that Dan Bilzerian, Myron Gaines, Stu Peters, when they go Jew this, Jew that, Jew this, Jew that, that's anti-Semitism. And you got to say Zionist this, Zionist that. There's a difference, right? Scapegoating Jews again. Didn't Hitler do that? Because it never stops with scapegoating Jews. You don't fight bigotry with more bigotry. But this particular lie right here that has been said by Dan Bilzerian, Candace Owens on Jimmy Dore without any pushback, and they've been saying it elsewhere, and they don't go with anybody who will push them back. There's a choice to believe that the Bolshevik Revolution is about Jews killing Christians rather than being, we've had shows about this, Don, when you've come on, a peasant revolution, a class war. The CIA and the government of the United States doesn't want you to ever believe there could be a class war. They always want you to believe it's something else. But this right here is being pushed, and all these people that I mentioned, they are pro-capitalist, meaning they're anti-collectivism. You could say anti-socialism, anti-communism, whatever. They don't want any form of collectivism whatsoever, which is an issue, I think. They are anti-immigrant. They sympathize with the empire is doing because they never hold the immigrant issue as part of our empire to fruition. They never connect the dots. Listen to this real quick, and then I want your opinions, because I think these people are being elevated so they can push the status quo of capitalism down our throat.
I'm America first. I won't apologize for it. I'm Christianity first. I won't apologize for it. And that upsets some people because I guess, how dare she have the audacity? Well, guess what? I have the audacity, folks.
So you're saying that there was a greater Holocaust of Christians that happened, and it was committed by the Bolsheviks, and the leader of them at the time was a Jewish guy.
Well, Henry Yagoda, what really ran the Gulag camp system. So people should read, if you're interested, Alexander Solzhenitsyn talking about how shocking it was to watch the American president linking arms with Stalin, talking about we're putting an end to the Holocaust in World War II. And Stalin was still mass killing Christians in Russia. I mean, it's an absolute nonsense. And you got to take it back all the way. You know, the Bolshevik Revolution happened. They assassinated the Tsar, I think, in 1880. And then by the time they actually properly took over, I think it was around 1910. And so what was going on in Russia at that time was they immediately took over. They started a gulag system, concentration camps, where they were mass drowning Christians in barges. And this information is readily available, and yet you never learn about it. And people don't want to talk about it. It makes them very uncomfortable.
Well, I never.
Because it's not fucking true. And the guy who fucking Alexander Solzhenitsyn is definitely a part. Hold on a second, Don. I'm going to pass it to you. Alexander Solzhenitsyn was part of Mockingbird Media. The New York Times printed whatever this fucking guy had to say. And when I'm saying, she's quoting two different authors. There are tons of other information and books and written of people telling the opposite. She and these guys chose to believe. Is Stalin fucking Jewish now? I mean, where the fuck do they come up with this shit? And this is CIA propaganda they are pushing. And Don, they use the excuse that they closed down the churches, and that's why they were anti-Christian. Could you explain to all the little boys and girls out there, the Candace Owens and the Dan Bilzerians, that they used the church just like they did in Europe? The Tsar was a descendants, the same families of the monarchs, and they used the church to oppress the people. So in a class revolution, the first thing you're going to do is shut down your oppressors, and you're going to shut down the churches. They don't mention that Stalin, 10 years later, built more churches than any leader in Russia ever. Please, Don, jump in, because I think this is so dangerous what they're doing right now, because they really are pitching the status quo of capitalism while turning a blind eye to what the dangers of imperialism has done all over the world. Jump in.
Is it possible for you to put up the thing you had up with her face in it, but with the text over it at the very beginning of that segment? Is that like gone, or can you do that with a click?
I think I can do it. Yes, let me see. Closed captions.
But yeah, like at the beginning of that, before it goes to Jimmy, she was
America
inside
first.
of
I want to apologize for it. I'm
Right here?
Christianity first. I want to apologize for it, and that upsets some people because I guess
no.
It was
She was inside a tweet.
Oh, you want the tweet itself?
Yes.
Oh yeah, because you want to. All right, here it is. Yeah,
too.
because you want to mention the fact that she doesn't even have her fucking dates right. Candace Owens and Jimmy Dore blame Jews for Stalin's massacres. The Bolshevik Revolution began in 1917, not 1880. And Owens says that the Tsar could have been killed in 1880. Stalin's top goons weren't Jewish. He wasn't Jewish.
Right.
I think at the time of the Bolshevik Revolution.
Talking about Yagoda.
I think at the time of the revolution, Russia, that area was 3% Jewish. So if there was a civil war in Russia, the most you could have a 6 to 7% Jewish in one group, and they're trying to say that group was the oppressors of the Christians. You want to see that, right?
Well, all right. Let's say, this is what I wanted to show. No, I want to put it up. I want to talk to it.
Right there.
Yeah, it takes me a second to see it. All right.
Well,
the very first sentence, it says it blames Jews for Stalin's massacres. Okay, this particular allegation is also not true. Stalin's massacres, that's also a false history.
Yes, it is.
And so I know that's not a popular position here, but it's a fact. And so, this is the kind of crap that we have to sift through to try to understand what the fuck we're looking at most of the time. Stalin was not even Russian, first of all. Georgia. He was born in Georgia. It was part of the Russian Empire then. But if you ask Georgians what's happening in Russia and Russians what's happening in Georgia, one thing they're not going to do is say that they share a common national identity. And so, I mean, some feel good or some bad, like a lot of people do when they break up. Ask a lot of exes how they feel about the ex, and that's what you're going to get out of all the different constituent republics of the USSR. So anyway, look, Hitler and the Nazis, and before that, the capitalists here played on Henry Ford. One example, even though he was do-si-doing with the Soviet government, thinking he could make money, and he was also do-si-doing with Adolf Hitler because he was ideologically sympathetic. Also, through that same allegation, while he was standing with Hitler, and this was a popular position to take among capitalists, where they could again look at there's been animosity between Jews and Christians probably since the crucifixion. Since the first Christians identified as Christians that way anyway. And the history of what happened to Jews in Europe is well known. And the history of what happened to the peasants who were Christians in Europe is also well known. And the scapegoating was also manipulating their feelings about all of that back then to keep them befuddled so they didn't go to the palace and drag the king out by his ass and string him the fuck up in front of the palace. This game has been going on for a long time. But that particular myth, originated in the main and was propagated from Nazi Germany, Goebbels, and Adolf Hitler. And so, if you want to try to figure out what actually happened, you got to try to figure out what actually happened before you can say that, before you can term it like this. Right? Look, I don't fault, or I don't want to comment on Jimmy Dore's participation in this to say, though, that I would have pushed back on it because I know the history. And if I were going to have somebody on talking this shit, I would try to find objective history to read. So that's a criticism. I could take that kind of criticism too. I don't intend it personally. However, Candace Owens and the whole legion of these people, it's their fucking job to turn the people that look at her and pay attention to her and this whole constellation now we're formally around Trump that rose up as opposition to the existing order, in 2016 or wherever you want to start this, even with Barack Obama, by the way, in 2008 and 2007, those people look to these people as, yes, this is the authentic resistance. It's an organized place where people like me feel, and then it's a Pied Piper move, basically. They then, walk them down and off the cliff. And this is one way of keeping working people who looking at a world where actually you could go through a transition from here through socialism to communism, almost like that, because the wherewithal exists in like in China and here and in Russia and much of Europe, and the rest of the planet could be wired in a minute. China's got boats ready to sail to build cities and infrastructure and shit all over the world. And we got the stuff here rusting on the fucking parking lot, but we can do it too. We can actually be in a situation where people can manage the operation of the things that produce their food and all of the not just the necessities, even many of the luxuries of life, without taking advantage of the mechanization mechanization of it, as they called it back in the 19th and early 20th centuries of production, but to where it is now. If you share the benefit of that, everybody works like a 5-hour fucking work week. The difference between that and what we have is what people are hoarding in a place where they can't really use it other than as to express power. Now, I don't know how you communicate that to people in a way that they can understand and figure there's a lot of shit that has to be done right now. But that, I think, is the task in front of us.
Hmm.
And
Karen, why don't you jump in?
Yeah.
You gotta go, Don?
5 minutes. I got a
5
5-minute
minutes. Well,
warning.
yeah, we'll let Karen jump in. Do you have anything to
Yeah.
I think this is a sheep herding operation.
Okay, very few people need to get their facts straight, and clearly, a post like that, and I didn't watch that. I don't even know what that is, but she didn't have her facts straight. But most people on that are on social media don't. A lot of people in academia don't even have their facts straight. So it does need to start with factual. Yeah. But I will say this: is I'm listening to this. I'm watching this. I'm understanding it. It brings to mind. So we have Marxism as Marx developed it, and that was really just on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution, right? So he's seeing capitalism, right? He's seeing what capitalism is doing, how it's operating, and that's a long time ago for me, right? Because I wasn't there. Yep. I'm a libertarian, and libertarian class analysis is a kind of a, I would say in some ways, now I'm probably going to get shot by the libertarians, but to me, I see it a little bit as a counterpart to some extent of pre-industrialization Marxism. In libertarian class analysis, doesn't blame capitalism, but it associates the state as we understand the state to be, obviously, who we talked earlier, BlackRock, Blackstone.
Yeah.
The big companies, the capital firms that own trillions and trillions of global assets and are working to get the remainder of those global assets, right? And they're hooked in with governments who really are filled with people that aren't very bright for the most part. I mean, you take Trump. How hard is it to influence Trump? Actually, he's a narcissist. He loves to be flattered. So what does he surround himself with? People who flatter him. Who's flattering him? The money people, his sleazy friends in the that part of the U.S. and global elite, and the Israelis, particularly Benjamin Netanyahu, who have studied all American presidents to see how we can deal with them on a personal level. So, Trump is he's highly vulnerable to manipulation. This is the people we elect. But so we say the state will solve the problem. Well, it's filled with incompetence, so it really won't. But the state is easily leveraged by what Marx would consider the capitalist class. So I think there's room.
The bourgeoisie.
Yeah. So anyway, libertarian class analysis, if you've never heard of it, look it up, because I think it explains quite a bit. But one thing that also comes to mind is we see the part of that I don't know what Candace is talking about. I don't know where she's basing it on, but so many, we have so much information coming at us, right? And we don't have time to research it all. Most Americans, particularly Americans, are not well versed in history of any type, whether it's American history or global. So we don't know. And we see these little things and we take a data bit in and we're fed bumper stickers, and that's fine. That's the nature of it. But what we need to encourage for everyone, but certainly Americans, is what is the framework through which we assess the data that's getting thrown at us? What is the framework through which we assess the bumper sticker? And for me, it's libertarian class analysis, okay, which is the extractors and those they extract from. Now, that may sound a little bit familiar to Marxists, right? Marxists say, well, there's an extractive class. It's capitalism. It's capitalists. We need the state to defend the people who produce. Libertarians would say, yeah, that would be nice, but the capitalist class owns the state. It is the state. It's the same. And the people who produce need to retain and control their productivity and benefit from their production. So in many ways, we have a lot of common ground, but I'm not a Marxist. I'm a libertarian, but my class this helps me understand when I see things like that. Yeah, I think there's common ground.
You get a Marxist agreeing with a libertarian.
And fundamentally, why are we agreeing? Because the facts that we're basing, the observations of how things work, supports it. It supports it. So that's more people need to think about how they are receiving this information. And obviously Candace is in the business of she's in the communication and propaganda business. Now, I don't think she's supporting Trump, but when you say things like that little bit and maybe other things, and you take Bilzerian and things like that, that feeds into the powers that are behind Trump. It feeds into, because it's divisive, it's accusatory, it's all of the ists, it's racist, it's anti-Semitic, it's all these things. So that serves who does anti-Semitism serve? It serves the state.
It serves the state, people. It serves the Zionists.
So it's good for us as people. We have access to all the information and all the history that was ever recorded, including the revisionist history, including what we've learned after the fact and how we, see how it's been written by this winner or that winner. Let's look at what the history would look like if it was written by those who didn't have the advantage of power. So, we have all of that accessible to us, but we do need to think about how we are putting it in place in our heads, because it is through the lens that we see it. And that lens is a philosophical perspective. I come from freedom, libertarian class analysis, individualism. I don't like the state. I don't like authoritarian, totalitarian systems. And guess what? I think most Marxists would have to say, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds right.
Can I say this much? I believe in a mixed system. I'm not he's a Marxist, right? But I understand Marxist theory as far as protecting workers. I believe in a mixed economy. I call myself a collectivist, because I believe that eventually we're one species on one planet. We're going to have to play nicely in the sandbox and figure out how to do certain things. And certainly you see with all these taxes, and I know libertarians go, taxes theft, and they'd like to eliminate it all together. But if there are taxes that are going to be taken out, I'd like to see it being used on the citizens, infrastructure, healthcare, education. I understand that if you get the state involved, how evil they can be, but the evilness is kind of right now lies within the corporations, and they're pulling all the strings. Don, we'll get you out of here. Is Candace Owens, is she anti-Semitic by choosing to believe in this rhetoric when there's plenty of other rhetoric that will combat what she's saying? She did mention the two authors, so she's not plucking it out of nowhere, but there are a lot of people who are repeating this stupid fucking theory, because if you do a little research, you'll see that this is all bullshit. And once again, I believe this is the state, this is the government, this is the ruling class trying to sell you the American empire as the lesser of two evils. What do you want? Stalin's killing, his mass murdering? You want to go with Mao's stuff? Yeah, we have some blood on our hands. We bombed a bunch of civilians and, Japan, but it's still better than the other choice. That's what this is about. Closing remarks, Don DeBar.
First, just an aside, what Karen just said, just a little piece of personal information that will help illuminate who he is. I did like a 15-year battle against the local development project here. And a lot of it involved going after the developer, not just here, but his other projects. One of them was in White Plains, New York. Take the battle to the enemy's camp, that theory. And it was effective. And what it was a large project in White Plains, 2 towers with luxury apartments in the middle of downtown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it got traction. And what happened because it got traction was that the developer was unable to sell the second tower because his name was so thoroughly sullied that the people wouldn't buy it. People were like, is it that Capelli's name or whatever? So what happened, what he did was he went to Trump and licensed Trump's name to put on the tower. Now it became White Plains Trump Tower, and it sold out with a 15% gain over the other units in the other building almost immediately. That's the business he's in. He licenses his name to people. And when he ran for president, I had this in the back of my head. Who is really running for president?
Yeah.
Looks like narcissism, but it's actually agency.
It's interesting. Wow. Yeah, that's important. People, little data bits like that, which are real and factual, that help. I think it helps people. People need to, they knowing that they can perceive other things very easily. And it's almost like we're all solving a crime. We're all solving a large crime that's been committed. And it takes a while to get all of the clues and put them all together. But after a while, we'll get there.
Yep. Don, thanks for being with us today. Get on out of here. We'll see you soon. You don't have to answer my question. You can answer it next time we come on.
Speak with you too, by the way. Yep. And it's my pleasure with both of you. Karen, thank you very much. And Pasta, thank you very much.
You got it, buddy.
Thank you.
Josh, do we have anybody in the queue?
We'll know in about 10 seconds.
So you don't know while they're talking if there's somebody in the queue?
Sorta. I think so.
We got to figure all this out. This is why we're having a soft opening. Guys, this is Drive Time in the Morning. I'm here with Wednesday's co-host, Karen Kwiatkowski, retired Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. Karen, you can answer that question if you want, as far as you don't have to. But I don't, I don't think anything ill of Candace Owens. And I kind of put an asterisk near her name over all the others. I don't see her doing what Dan Bilzerian says. Yeah. Dan Bilzerian is running for Congress. Now, first of all, the guy's a fucking fraud, right? He really is. His weed company, he ripped a bunch of fucking people off. No. He says he made a bunch of money. He made his money playing poker. He did not. That's where I first saw Dan. He's an okay poker player. And if you are going to win that much money, millions of dollars in poker, you need a big stake to go in with it. His daddy was not arrested, but was fined and had to pay a small amount to the money he embezzled on Wall Street. So, and this guy was like the number one thing on Instagram. So I don't believe that happens. I believe it was from the inception of Instagram, which was eventually owned by Meta, that they promote the people that they want to promote. And they do that on Twitter. They do that on every single outlet now. And that's why they're promoting these people. But do you believe that for her to believe this BS, that is borderline anti-Semitic?
Well, I don't like to paint anti-Semitic on anybody because first off, to truly be anti-Semitic is to be anti-Arab, right? Because the Semitic people are from the whole thing.
In the way that is framed nowadays, is she anti-Jewish by believing that the Bolshevik Revolution is about Jews killing Christians? I mean, that's a choice.
I would not label anybody based on an example like that.
Okay.
Now, does she have hostility towards Zionism? Absolutely. She has a great deal of hostility towards Zionism, but many Jews have hostility towards Zionism. So I don't even like to label anybody anti-Semitic. She needs to be better informed on some things, but I think she has the right idea in challenging totalitarian and ethno-racist and ethno-fascist political systems, and that's what Zionism is. It's a neo-colonialist project which has every one of the bad aspects that we have been fighting in this country ourselves with our civil rights movement and everything else to eliminate. So I'm not even going to go there. But I will say,
I don't mean to jump in, but all these people that I mentioned, they're all theocrats themselves. They're all Christianity first. So they just believe that their God is better than the other God. And I don't want to piss and shit on Charlie Kirk. I certainly didn't. I didn't want to lionize him, but he said a week before he was killed or before he went to Saudi Arabia or wherever he's hanging out. Maybe he's hanging out with Biggie and Elvis on an island. But whatever the case may be, before his death, he said that communism, wokeism, and Islam were still the major problems with what's going on. That is justifying imperialism.
Sure. And also, like you said, with a lot of these things, like Bilzerian, you know, these things don't just come out of nowhere. You know, if you take we could go on and on for Charlie Kirk, but, you know, here's a guy that kind of was promoted, and TPSA, look where their money has always come from. And the little skiff the little tiff at the end, you know, with, you know, Zionism, his awakening because of Gaza, and then his death, well, that just put an end to that. But the whole thing is kind of a construct in many ways. But I will say this for Candace and a lot of people that like her, both that are silent and they just watch stuff. She is anti-war. She is combative. She's very combative. Her language is the language of fight, but she is anti-war. She's anti-overseas war. She wants to bring troops home.
She's not anti-interventionist.
Well, then I would not.
If she's anti-immigrant and she also talks about the immigration problem, what's going on, then chooses to ignore why so many immigrants are coming here because of American empire. I don't know. That's a choice to me.
You know, I'm not exposed to enough of Candace's stuff.
Yeah.
To, in fact, the only thing I've ever listened to, the first time I ever listened to Candace was after the Charlie Kirk thing. And then during the time she was obsessed, and it was like a crime drama. And I'll tell you what, I am into crime dramas. I enjoy them. I think a lot of people do. I like, you know, the mystery, solving the mystery, getting the clues. That's when I watched Candace. And I don't watch her regularly. I don't even know what she's up to, but I did get the sense she was anti-war. But yeah, if she's pro-interventionism, then she's got a long way to go. She needs to progress further. But I'll tell you what, I will grant pretty much everybody, including the most rabid Jewish settler that's trying to kill babies and take their land, I will grant that they really have a road to follow, and they can be, and maybe this is my latent Christianity, that they can be healed mentally, they can be made more aware, they can discover. And who was it? There's somebody in the Bible, I don't know if it's Paul and Saul. Didn't the guy change his name? There was like a guy named Saul, and he was like killing a whole bunch of people and being a bad guy. And then he had I don't know if he went blind.
The Bible we're talking about?
In the Bible, yeah. And I don't even know, you know, I'm not an expert on that.
There are Christians there. Is there a Saul who went to Paul or a Paul who went to Saul? If somebody
he was Saul, and he got his name changed because he had a personal transformation and all of the evil things. Well, we do King David, another example. What a criminal he was, right? But then he, you know, had like an improvement. And I don't know if these things are based on fact or not. I'm not a biblical historian, but the story of human transformation, of people doing bad things and then being able to heal their character, heal their spirit, change, do 100% reversal. This is a story we tell. Humanity all over the planet tells stories like this because it is possible. My dog. Did I just say, yay, it's possible. We can transform ourselves. And, really, we can, and we have to. And if we want to avoid war and get a better world that is more just and more better economically, better educationally, spiritually, in every possible way, then we do have to help. We have to transform ourselves constantly, and we have to help other people get on that path. Can't do it for them, but they can get on that path. And this is, I guess it's the redemption, kind of the concept of redemption. So I don't know Bilzerian's story. I first heard it not long ago.
I just want to say
he needs to get on the redemption path, most likely.
Well, he's a Fed in my mind. I think
Is
a
he
lot of these
really?
people,
Oh my gosh.
you don't get lifted up to these numbers without the people behind you controlling you. They're not going to let anybody get out of hand. I think they already have a problem when it comes to athletes or singers who make it, and they have an issue because they can't control them. But so they try to control that environment as well. It's really hard, I guess, for the
Honestly,
athletes.
too.
But
It's wow. There's so much we could talk about. I have to be gone in about 5 minutes.
oh, we're leaving right now. We got a minute. We got a
Okay.
minute because we're going to do the monologue, so we're out. And you can go do your thing. You can catch Karen Kwiatkowski on Judge Knapp on Tuesdays. You'll be able to catch her here Wednesdays. We'll be fielding calls, so if you want to call in and talk. Karen, thank you so much. We'll see you back next Wednesday. You got anything else special you want to tell the people about before we do the closing monologue?
No, but if you want to join my Substack or whatever, it's all free. It's free stuff. It's KarenKwiatkowski.substack.com. So that's where I put all my stuff, and I try to link videos like this, and I will be able to do that. And I can't wait to be with you again on Wednesday. This has been a lot of fun, and we're
going to have days where we're going to get 5-6 callers in there. It's going to happen. You know, this is a soft open. We didn't even advertise. We're still just trying to work out the phone line issues. We've had a new number every single day. Well, twice now, right?
Come on now.
Before we even started, we had a number. So we're trying to get all the software, hardware issues worked out. Sleepy's a genius at that. So I can't wait for you to come back when we're getting 5-6 calls a day. And that's going to happen even today, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. I do my show for 1 hour drive time on WBAI. That's on 99.5 and WBAI. Karen, we'll see you back next week. Tomorrow, we have one of your friends, the Thursday guy. I got the Libertarians. I keep them on the same area so I can watch them. Kyle Ann's alone. I got to keep my eyes.
I love Kyle.
You
Kyle's
see
great.
the Libertarian Party now? They got a new chair, and it's crazy over there. That party screwed themselves over by supporting Donald Trump. A lot of the top.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's true. But nobody's perfect. we'll get better. Right. We'll get better.
We'll talk about that next week. You know, they had a candidate in Chase Oliver. He had some issues, but I had a slogan for them. They should have supported him. Bring the party together so next time around you can get your guy. The Mises caucuses, they didn't do it. They don't know how to schmooze properly. But my saying was, Chase Oliver, at least he's not a Zionist. And you could have voted for him. Karen, we love you. We'll see you next week.
Okay, see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Karen Kwiatkowski, everybody. Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. And next week, you got to bring the dog into the shot. So in the morning show, we got to see the dog.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
I love dogs.
We love dogs. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Cue the music, maestro. I'm going to do my closing monologue. All right. Look, as we wrap up today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on the importance of diversity of thought and the peace we can cultivate with our neighbors. In a world that often feels divided, it's our differences that can actually bring us together. Every unique perspective, every story shared enriches our collective experience and fosters understanding. Remember, it's okay to disagree. It's how we handle those disagreements that truly matters. Let's embrace dialogue over debate, compassion over conflict. When we listen to one another, we open the door to meaningful relationships. By engaging in our diverse communities, we can find common ground and build bridges that promote peace. So I encourage you, reach out to someone with a different viewpoint. Share a meal, have a conversation, share a cup of coffee, or simply just listen. Let's create a ripple effect of kindness and understanding in our neighbors and beyond, because sometimes conflict can often bring resolution. Hey, thank you for tuning in today. Remember, together we can celebrate our diversity and pave the way for a brighter, more peaceful future. So until next time, keep the dialogue flowing and that peace growing. For Josh, Sleepy J, Craig Pasta Jardula, Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski, Miguel Santiago, and Don DeBar, that's it for Drive Time. Remember, I do this on WBAI. You can go to WBAI.org today at 4 p.m. Eastern. And I also have a Truth Wire with my co-hosts, Fiorella Isabel and my engineer, Jamie Cheese Slice, at 12:30 p.m. today in a couple hours. You can watch that here on YouTube. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow. I love you all, and peace.